Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in for our lunchtime art talk. I'm here with Chire Regans, aka VantaBlack, who has the really beautiful project on view in our space right now. I felt your gaze upon me. I knew you were watching. Chire Regans, also known as VantaBlack, is an activist and artist incorporating social issues into her practice, creating installations with mixed media, primarily in portraiture drawings and paintings. Regans was born in St. Louis, Missouri, and relocated to Miami with her family in the late 1980s. After graduating from Florida A&M University, Regans began to focus primarily on drawing from life and portraiture. As societal issues began to weigh heavily on her conscience, especially with the emergence of Black Lives Matter, a message took shape behind the imagery as she merged her roles as mother, community advocate, and artist. Regans serves on the Miami-Dade Community Relation Board's Criminal Justice and Law Enforcement Committee and works as a teaching artist at PAM. In 2020, Chire was the first recipient of the Oulite Arts Ellie's Social Justice Award. Chire Regans' exhibition is funded in part by a grant from South Arts and the National Endowment for the Arts. The exhibition is part of Introspective, A Reckoning of the Soul, curated by Marie Vickles, and is on view through Sunday, February 27th. We are also now presenting our second Open Dialogues film in Gallery 3, which is in this space here, with Chire Regans. The 20-minute film, Black Voices, Black Stories, which was filmed by Freddie Rodriguez, tells the stories and experiences of 8 Black Broward community residents in context to social justice. All of these projects were funded by Community Foundation Broward, and to them we are so grateful. Chire Regans' exhibition, I Felt Your Gaze Upon Me, I Knew You Were Watching, is composed of 2 series of works. The first are large canvas portraits of the artist, grandmother, and daughter, and Chire, right? So I'll kind of scan through these images here so we can see. The second part is the pieces of the Memorial Project series, for which the artist has done hundreds of portraits of people who have lost their lives to gun violence. So I believe we have 15 on view here. And then to look this is looking towards the north side of the room at the portraits of Chire to the left, her daughter, and her grandmother. So here's Chire's mother, grandmother, Chire, and her daughter, and then also the main exhibition, what I can get back to. But first, I think we should just jump right in to the Memorial Project series that you call social commentary art. And perhaps you can speak a little bit about these projects, about how the series began.
Yeah, thank you for that wonderful introduction. When people read about you, it just sounds so phenomenal.
Well, you are, so yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
So this body of work, the Memorial Portrait Project, is a series of portraits of victims of gun violence, police brutality, and domestic violence. I started this body of work in 2016, and I started with one portrait of a 6-year-old named King Carter, and he lost his life on February 20th, about 6 years ago. And
wow.
Yeah. And so his face was all over television. The first video that I saw in reference to his death was a live video that his father did on Facebook. And it was just full of raw emotion, anger, pain, all of these things that this Black man was experiencing. And so I felt so many things in response to seeing this video. So I decided to respond as an artist. And usually when I can't really verbalize how I feel about a certain thing, I'll go to my practice and put the words there. So I started with a portrait of King. I learned a lot about him. And in the process of doing research about him, I came across other names of victims that weren't so well known. So I wanted to tell those stories too. So I started with a portrait of King, and then I did 4 more portraits, and I used social media to display the work and talk about these individuals and what happened to them. So then people started to reach out to me and want me to tell the stories of their loved ones. So I decided that that's what I would do as an artist. Um, so the project grew, and I started to exhibit the work, and I would be mindful about where I would exhibit the work, and I would display specific portraits in specific spaces, and I would display the work in a number of different ways. So the work here at Art and Culture, I decided to really respond to how I felt in the space and how I would configure the pieces in that space. And I used this fabric called mud cloth as the background, because this cloth is traditionally used to signify royalty, status, protection, and I wanted the viewers to feel all of those things in this space. I wanted these people to be protected and honored in this space. So that's why I chose to use this cloth. And this arrangement, I just did it right in the gallery because I just wanted to respond to that space. So there are 15 displayed here. And at the same time, there were 100 pieces on display at the Bakehouse Art Complex.
So I'm going to show some of these as like the individuals, because what I love is that in conjunction with this, you have their names and you have the age of their death when they died. So, and also if you could speak a little bit about that, how important it is for you to include their names and their ages, and also, the technique of using the white pencil on the black cardboard, which I don't think people realize at first, or at least I didn't realize at first until you really are able to see them in person.
Right. When you see the work in person, there's a different effect that it has on people. And people always say that they don't realize that this is actually black paper. So these pieces are all white charcoal on black paper. When I first started the series, I was working with pencil, but then I kind of shifted over to charcoal. And I started to really kind of incorporate line, just straight lines and, outlines into the work also. I was talking to somebody not too long ago who was asking me about why do you use black paper? And to me, that's normal because I've been doing it for so long. So when you point it out, I'm like, yeah, people aren't usually seeing work on black paper. I started to use black paper back in college, and I really wanted to explore how light hits a surface, hits the human form, and it's a challenge to work that way. And once I started to get more comfortable using the black paper, I was like, this is what I'm going to do, because I want to focus on how light hits a person's face and almost bringing life back into this person. And I really don't want people to focus on, this person's race or attach all these things that people attach to race. I want you to see this person as a human being. And this is me honoring this human being on the surface. And what started to happen was people would send me photos that they wanted me to use in these specific portraits. And I would get the background of, what this photo means to this person. It would be the last photo they took of them, just a really good representation of the person. Because usually when someone, especially Black people, when Black people die tragically, the first images that you see are, if they have a criminal background, you see mugshots. And I purposely don't use mugshots because that is not an accurate representation of a person. I don't want you to judge this person. And I choose specific photos if a family hasn't given me a photo.
You definitely, I think you are definitely very successful at that. I think when the tenderness in the care, I think, and so maybe the way that you approach it definitely comes through. I think, looking at the softness and also what you just mentioned with the light, wanting the light to kind of bring out these different people, because these are, young men, young women, whose expressions are very much included in these different portraits. So
I try to really reflect the things that I'm feeling because, I learn about them. I talk to people that love them. So I try to use all of that information in the creation of this portrait. I want you to feel, if you're viewing this work, I want you to feel what I felt, as I was creating these pieces. And as you're going through them, I'm like, gosh, I remember where I was emotionally when I completed each of these pieces.
I think it's also really interesting the way that you had mentioned this idea that this is a shroud. And I think, in context with this particular installation, this really beautiful maternal shroud is kind of coming in as a protection. So there's lots of different levels. First, I don't want to pass on the fact that you're saying that you're communicating with the people that have lost their loved ones. I think that's a really important factor to the way that you're making your work, is that you're finding out who these people are. You're helping the family grieve, which is a very kind of striking, very beautiful way of adding that element into your work. But also in this, it's like this very personal way of connecting yourself with this idea, with this shroud of creating a protection for these people that also have loved ones. Maybe you can speak about the juxtaposition between the portraits of the maternal side of your family and these portraits and how they came together in the installation.
Yeah. So the other pieces, the maternal portraits are portraits of the women in my family. And I started these portraits when I was at Anderson Ranch last year. And going into that residency, it was a 5-week residency. Going into that residency, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to explore scale. So when I got there, I was like, I need my people around me. So I was like, where the ladies at? So I was like, I need my mama, my grandma, myself and my daughter in this space, because I thought a lot about them in that space, because I really felt, kind of isolated. It was the first time I had been away from my kids for this amount of time. So it was my way of bringing my family into that space. And it parallels the idea of remembrance and honoring those that are important to you. So, and then I did a lot of reflecting on, the time that I had spent with my mom and my grandma. My grandmother still lives in St. Louis. And just like how important it is to hold on to these feelings, these memories. And I wanted to put that into the work. And I explored collage and gold leaf and texture. And I wanted people to actually feel, what I felt as I was creating these pieces. That's a really important thing to me as an artist, to put my emotion into the work and have that emotion reflected back upon the viewer. I don't want you to look at this work and be like, okay, so what's this about? I want you to have a connection to this work in some aspect.
Mm-hmm. I think it's very interesting, again, because of the tenderness. I think it makes it really accessible. So looking at, say, your mother, you've had some gold leaf and, and it's also, just to mention, it's the same approach where you're doing black construction paper, right?
Yeah, I use drawing paper. And, I kind of wanted to push and pull. I wanted, to push certain things back and bring certain things forward. And, this picture of my mom don't look like this now, but, this is one of my favorite pictures of my mama because, she got her gold tooth. She ain't got that gold tooth no more. And then, she don't wear earrings like that no more. And then her hair, she doesn't wear hair like that. So it's just like, I wanted to capture that moment in my mom's life and, my connection to that image.
Yeah. That's your youth right there though, right? That's how it's almost like you're thinking about like your mom when you really, really needed her, like that time when you were just a little kid and that's what she looked like. She was rocking it, she was absolutely rocking it. And she looks happy, right?
Yeah.
She looks, she looks like she's enjoying life. And then also with your grandmother here, there's like just crazy wisdom.
Oh yeah. My grandma, let me tell you something. My grandmother, like this is just such an accurate representation of my grandma. She would stare at you and read you to death, but it was in love. It would be all these jokes and, I was thinking back to all those things, and I wanted to bring all of that into that space because it was a very difficult space to be in. So I just wanted to surround myself with these memories and,
can I ask you can tell me now, but what was difficult about it? It was cold, right? You were alone. It was the first time being away from your family.
Yeah. And the cold is, you can deal with it. As long as you dress warm, you good. But, and then I'm from the Midwest. So I wasn't worried about the cold, but it was just, almost a feeling of isolation. And then, we were in the midst of the pandemic. And, the ranch was closed to visitors. So the only people I had to look at was the other residents, and everybody else was working. Like if you're not in your studio, you sleeping or you walking, I went with the going on walks and stuff. But, it was very isolating. You have all this space to create. Everyone's going to create. You're on the other side of the country. So it was very isolating. And then culturally, what we brought, what the Miamians brought was real different. It was very different for the staff there. So we, when we could lean on each other, we did. And then, I called my friends a lot and I was like, let me tell you about this place. It's a lot, but I was able to focus and create. I was like, let me take advantage of this time because I don't often have uninterrupted time. You a mama, So.
Oh my goodness, yes. It's an interesting, residencies are interesting to me because it's such a great, opportunity. But there is like that pressure, right? Of like, you're there for however long amount of time you have. It's like almost like this crazy deadline of needing to say, okay, well, what did you get to, or where did you go at the end of this? And so it's nice to see that like you did that. You went there and you were having all of these feelings. You were able to work through these feelings in an interesting way. And then there was like this new, and is it entirely new? Like a very new body of work came out of it.
Yeah.
That then sets the stage for new things, right?
Yes. And what was interesting was the response, the response from my fellow residents and then the response from the staff, because they were used to seeing my work on a smaller scale. The memorial portraits are, the paper is 9x12. So that's really, really small. So to go to these these maternal pieces are 30 by 40. So they're larger than life size. So to go from 11 by 14 or 9 by 12 to that size, it was a big jump. And, to not lose any of the things that are often lost when you increase scale. And then to incorporate color and texture and all these different things. And for me to be satisfied with it was really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder how it must have been, because one of the things is I was like, kind of putting your bio together and think about, all the different things that you do. And what I think is just so really, really cool about what you do is that you fuse all of your different things together, like your activism, your work as a mother, and your work as an artist, that I think is just like this power trio of like energies and jobs and work. And it really is something that you feel in the work that you do. Like you get, and I don't know, this is more of a comment and you can kind of speak more about it. Like, how do you do it? Like, how do you get how do you come to this place where you're able to combine all of that? Instead of being like, okay, now I'm a mom, no, everything is pooled in together. And I would love for you to speak about that because of course I'm trying to figure that out.
Girl, it's a work in progress. Listen, when I became a mama, it's not just you, it's, them and in you. So there are all these things that you have to juggle at any given time. Listen, I talking to my friend and my kid's dad, he had a breakdown a couple of weeks ago and he was like, I had to think about 3 things today and I'm sorry, I forgot. I was like, you know what? I get it. I'm sorry you had 3 things on your plate. So that's kind of what you have to do for them. And I was telling my homegirl, I was like, I wish at any given time I only had 3 things to think about. And it's just the nature of being, all of these things. You have to juggle all of these things at any given time. And I really do try to incorporate all of who I am into my work. And because I want people to see that I am many things, a lot of artists are many different things. I'm not just one thing. I remember, I'm just going on, I meander.
Yes, please.
I remember when I was working on a mural, there were these tours that would come by the mural. So this one group came by and this guy asked me, he said, how are you able to do this and then still be an artist and a mama? I said, listen, I've been a Black lady all my life. This is what we do. We just have many things to juggle and we juggle those things. So, it's interesting when people don't have that. I remember when I didn't have, this many things to juggle, but I like it. I like it now. It's cool.
I think it's like what, you have no choice. You just have no choice. But, Kella, we had this wonderful chat a couple weeks ago that Marie Vickles led, like a roundtable conversation. And Kella said this really amazing, Kella said a few things that were amazing, but one of them was that, Black women show up. And it was just like, yeah, it was all Black women and they showed up and they did the work and they, it just was it. And I wish like the energy in the room was suddenly like, whew, like it felt, you could feel it. And it was just like, yes, and it's, and they don't, and again, Kella's like, we don't speak much. Maybe we don't talk too much. Maybe we're just doing the work, but we are there. And I think that is such a beautiful thought that like still obviously sticks with me.
It's real. Black women show the fuck up.
Yeah.
Sorry, but
Yeah.
that's just the way that it is. You know, I've worked with all different types of people, you know, shows and, you know, just things. When it comes to Black women, we just know, you know, I know if I look at a sister and, you know, I know just a little bit about her, I'm like, oh, I know a lot more about you. And I can relate, connect, and we just get it. We know we got to get things done, you know, and it's just it's really, really magical. It's really, really magical working with sisters. And I think there should be a lot more of that. I would like to see a lot more shows that are all Black women, you know.
Yeah.
Whenever I do see shows, I always, you know, I'm always looking at how many sisters are in the show, because that representation needs to be there, because there's a different experience associated with being a Black woman anywhere. So yeah, we show up.
I think, it's interesting because and I guess to circle around to, you know, the influence and the impact, I read in this article where you lost a high school friend. But the quote that I think is so interesting in Cultured Magazine, because you did lose someone close to you to gun violence, that you wrote, and this is a quote, I'm consoled because he was responsible for so many close friendships I enjoyed today. I'm not a spectator. I talk about it equally and share my loss. So it is like this idea of like relationship. What a beautiful thing to say, by the way.
Thank you.
Because it is about what happened, something that happened to you that still has left your mark, that has left such impact on you that now reverberates in the work that you do, in the friendships that you have. And I know with your friendships with Lonnie and T. Elliott that are also in the exhibition, the way that the work still speaks very beautifully about, you know, your friendships and the people that you've lost. I don't know if you'd like to speak about that, or you can speak again about working with Lonnie, or, you know, just whatever you would like to take from that.
It is very special working with Lonnie. She happens to be somebody that I like very much. You know, she's one of my best friends, and Todd is too. We all met in high school, and the friend that we lost, you know, had we not lost him, he would be the fourth in, you know, our group. You would say Lonnie, Todd, Chire, and James, you know, had he not lost his life. And it was our friendship that made us all close. So, you know, I try to make it clear whenever I interact with families and I talk about the work that I do. I try to make it clear that I'm not trying to put your tragedy on display. I'm not being, you know, a spectator. This isn't voyeurism. This is something that I've gone through, you know, and it's difficult for me to talk about at certain times, you know. And I try to have that type of care in any interaction that I have with people who have lost someone. I try to make it known that, you know, I don't know what you feel, but I know what it feels to lose, you know. So that informs my work also, you know, still grappling with those feelings of loss. And, you know, I've lost 2 cousins since James. And you know, it's an ongoing thing that I deal with, and I can retreat to my work. And I just understand what it feels like. And I try to make that clear, you know, when I talk about my work and when I interact with loved ones.
So here's a question that's, again, like, what do you hope will happen? What do you hope will come of all of the work that you do and the activism that you do, and the fact that you are an advocate? You're on like this, you know, this, I want to make sure I say it correctly, the Criminal Justice and Law Enforcement Committee. What are some of the things that you hope to see come out of this?
So many things, Megan. You know, I I respond to people's response to the work, right? And usually, a response that I get is, "What can I do about what's happening?" So I try to make sure that I am informed myself, and I give people options. Here, what you can do if you're not an artist, can you write some emails? Can you make some phone calls? Are you passionate about any issue? You start with an issue that you're passionate about. You inform yourself, and then you can make some phone calls. And I want people to understand that, you know, this isn't something that you can easily distance yourself from. Like, gun violence can touch any household. A lot of the families that I talk to, they always say, you know, I never thought that this would happen to me. And I think that that's a very real response to things that you hear about. You think that'll never happen to me. It might not, but there is a chance that it will. And even if you haven't been touched by a tragedy, you can still be an advocate. You can still get out here and find an issue associated with gun violence, police brutality that you want to talk about. I think a lot of families tell me that they feel alone in this fight. And my response is, you know, mothers who have lost children, you shouldn't be on the front lines, you know, trying to get people to listen to you, to understand what's happening. You know, people should be standing in front of you, you know, and you know, supporting you. So I think if people respond to the work and feel like maybe there's something that they can do, that's one of my many hopes.
I think there was, you know, it's interesting because now that I've had a few of these conversations, you know, we had a talk with T. Elliott, with Naima Safia Sandy a couple weeks ago, and then with the Introspective Roundtable. There's still so much ignorance out there that is really quite surprising. And right. It really is, really, you still think that way. And yeah. I am so, I'm personally, I'm grateful that I'm learning, you know, that there still are these things that you're just kind of like, wow, you know, that argument is still going around, you know, these like things that resurface. So it's great for me to see that these conversations are happening. It's great, you know, even, you know, just to realize that, you know, you have to keep moving, you have to keep persisting, and you have to keep standing up and sharing this information, that it's not something that is done, but something that just keeps happening continuously. I've been reading, I read some really great literature, like historical literature on Miami. And so when you're thinking about the parallels throughout history and how many things we see now, the legislation and some of the stuff we see happening now is really, we saw it 50 years ago. And and so that's that is surprising to me. And so that's, in that sense, I'm ignorant to those things. And now it's coming. So
and even the things that artists are talking about, you know, a lot of us are talking about social issues, and this is not a new thing. You know, there are artists from decades ago that spoke about the same thing in their work. It's just the people involved in the conversations, or the people willing to participate in the conversations, may change, but we've always been having these conversations with one another and through our work. And I think I always decide, anytime I'm having a conversation or, you know, talking about my work, I always decide how much emotional labor I'm ready to do in this specific situations. And in some situations, okay, I'll do the labor. Let me tell you what you need to do to address what's happening. And other times I'm like, look, I don't know what you want me to do. I can't, you know, do this lifting for you all the time. So I think that just the fact that you're acknowledging that there are things to learn, that's great. I love that. It doesn't surprise me that you said that, you know, and hearing other people say that is great. You know, there's so many things there's so many avenues for you to inform yourself. You know, you're walking around with a computer in your hand every day. You can read and inform yourself, you know, and just having conversations and understanding how to have those conversations and understanding, you know, everybody ain't there to inform you. You know, you can do the work, you can do the work yourself. So I appreciate that. I think that that's great.
Oh, there's, yeah, I mean, there's so much there. There's just so much to learn. And I want to also make sure that I show this other piece of yours, say their names, just in case. Oh, I mean, this is incredible that you showed up to set up your memorial again with the shroud with that beautiful print with the memorial. This is recently with the Trayvon Martin 10 years.
Yeah. 10th
It,
annual Peace March. It's been 10 years since he's been gone, which is just, you know, it's crazy.
and it's right here. I mean, that's the other thing that I think is really amazing. You know, I moved here 3 years ago. My kids, you know, we moved to Aventura. My children would have gone to the high school that Trayvon Martin was attending. You know, that was right in the neighborhood, and it's right there. And I think that's something that people need to be really thinking about, you know, especially since I'm here in Hollywood and we're in Broward County and Miami-Dade, and all of this stuff is happening right here. But maybe you could talk about your experience to date, your experience in doing this, because it looks absolutely incredible. I was watching you post it. I was on Instagram when you were posting these images, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is 15 minutes away from me. So
yeah. So the foundation reached out to me, and because on the CJLE, I serve with Ronald Fulton. He is one of the brothers of Sabrina Fulton. And so the foundation reached out to me, and they needed posters for the march. So in this clip right here, this screenshot, you can see like right in the middle, you can see one of the posters that I made. I made, I think 10 posters for the march. And then they asked me if I wanted to display some of my work. And I was like, sure. So the pieces that were on display, go back one. Yeah.
Yeah, here.
So
yeah.
These portraits here in the front, there was a member from every single one of their families there at the march.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Trayvon, King Carter, Eric Garner, and Tatiana Jefferson. So all of those, Tatiana Jefferson, all of their families were there. And so people were
the nephew.
Yes, this is George Floyd's nephew. One of his brothers was also there. And so this brother came up and he was like, so how much is it? And I was like, these are not for sale. And I was like, you can have this piece. So I was giving him the portrait there, and he was like, you know, I have a spot for it. And, you know, we spent a little bit of time talking about what his family has gone through, the media attention, the onslaught of just hatred that he receives every day. And, you know, it was just one of those moments where I was just like, you know, this family is going to have a piece of work that I created and remembrance of their loved one. I gave away several of the portraits there. If there was a family member that came up to me, I gave them the
portrait. My goodness.
Yeah. So I gave him that piece that day.
That's amazing. And again, that's something I don't think most people think about, is the backlash that the families receive for trying to bring attention to the loss of their loved ones, that they do receive that kind of anger and hostility and denial and blame. And it's really quite awful.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm never going to see the video of this man taking his last breath, but there are people who have seen the video and still find fault in him So I don't know what else people want us to do. Like, you see a video and you still think that there was something that this brother did to deserve what happened to him. So I ain't trying to talk to people that think that. I
Yeah. Yeah, those aren't the people that those aren't people I think that you can connect, that can connect. It's like a complete disconnect, that they're not able, and that's just so deeply sad for the families, and it just awful. I mean, there's these little elements of things that you just don't know, that people just don't know. So it's really incredible that you're able to share it. Yeah, and then we'll finish up with this project here. This is another ongoing project, a piece that you started. Perhaps you can tell us a little bit about this. This is the Bakehouse Art Complex in downtown Miami.
Yes. So the title of this project is Say Their Names. And I started planning to do a public art piece right after George Floyd was murdered. Everything was shut down. We were in the midst of the pandemic. And artists were responding to what happened to him. Globally, artists were responding. And I wanted to respond. And I remember telling my friend, I was like, I'm going to do a mural. She was like, what? You don't do murals? I was like, I'm going to do one. And, you really don't think about how difficult things are when you're planning them. But I think the easiest part of this was finding the location. And, when I started to actually start to work on the names, I was like, gosh, I can't, this is a major undertaking. And, but it was necessary. I remember when, I hired a company to come and put up, say their names in, the 3 languages. And, I had told them about what I wanted to do. And they were saying, we can put the names, we can do that also. We can do that very quickly. And I said, you know what? No, this is going to be, it's about the labor involved and, me honoring each person individually. So I started with names of victims who I had already memorialized. I was already familiar with what had happened to them. And then I kept going. So we started in July. We started painting, and then in August, we probably started with the names. So I hand stenciled every name that's on this wall. There are 541 names on this wall. And then, I had people who volunteered, fellow artists, to come and fill in the names. And then, as we progressed down the wall, people would reach out to me and want to come and help work on the wall. So we finished in December of 2020. And
wow.
Yeah, from July until December of 2020. And I wanted to actually say their names. So these flowers that you see on the ground are from the unveiling of this mural. And myself and another activist who's a survivor of gun violence, Megan Hobson, we did a reading of all 541 names. And then Lonnie did an activation in the space. And then afterwards, I had an arrangement of flowers for people to leave an offering at the wall. And this is one of the photos of that. It was just so beautiful after we finished the reading, how the entire wall, which is a block long, was completely lined with flowers and offerings and whatever people wanted to leave. On this pathway.
Yeah, and you've had some events like since then. You've had people show up, people that recognize the names, that know some of the names. Since
I didn't really. I've never worked outside for an extended amount of time, so I wasn't really prepared for the amount of attention that this project was going to get. people were coming literally every day. People were stopping and asking me, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And then sometimes I would just watch people engage with this piece, and they would stop at a certain spot, and I would already know, okay, I see the name. Like, I know what name they're responding to. So one time I was out here, there was some brothers that pulled up, and they were like, what you doing, sister? So, I was telling them about the project, and they were saying that they were from the Circle of Brotherhood. Like, I was familiar with that organization. They had just did a hunger strike. And, one of them stopped, and he said, I know this name, Jamal Paez. And then he got on the phone. He called Jamal's mother, and, he was telling her, that Jamal's name was there. So when he got off the phone, he told me that he watched him grow up. He was like a second father to him. Someone in their family had just succumbed to COVID. And, we shared a really great conversation about what Jamal meant to him. And it just so happened that where they stopped their car was right in front of Jamal's name. So they didn't see it immediately. They had walked, and then he stopped, and he noticed Jamal's name. And I was like, brother, Jamal told you to stop today. He wanted you to stop and have this conversation today. So later on, members of Jamal's family had hit me up on social media. I'm pretty accessible on social media. So one day, I think I was alone that day, and these cars pull up, and all these sisters get out the car, and I was like, hi. So, so they get out, and it was 4 generations of women from Jamal's family that got out of that car. And I was so over it was a lot, Meghan. It was a lot. And we shared a lot of embraces and tears and thank yous. And it was just a really special moment to have these sisters come out here and, share with me, like, their memories of him, his mom, his grandma, so it was 6 months of that. So it made that project so special. Wow. And it's still happening. People are still visiting the mural and, sending me photos and telling me about the experience. And that's what art should do. If you do art in the public domain, it should engage with the public. And I'm just really thankful that this does that. That's my goal in this.
It does that with such simplicity.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a beautiful, concise statement.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the way that it can grab. And then the idea of people leaving roses, that it's still a process, that it's still something that people can find ways to grieve. It's really quite striking. I'm gonna end things so that people can go back to work, but I don't know what to say, Chire. I just think that you are just such an incredible, beautiful, bright, brilliant soul. And I'm so grateful to know you, to be able to work with you, and to have such an incredible project on display in our center that people are seeing and coming through. And something that people don't know at the center is that we have the chairs and we have books. We want people to sit. We want people to be in the space. And I'm just really thankful. So thank you. Thank you for speaking with us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.